With its simple yet engaging gameplay and kid-friendly design, the Pokémon series of games has been one of the most successful franchises in Nintendo's history. The latest installment of Pokémon, Pokémon FireRed and LeafGreen, continues the tradition on the Game Boy Advance. The latest games in the series are Pokémon FireRed and LeafGreen, and they continue the proud tradition that originally started way back on the Game Boy. FireRed and LeafGreen are actually remakes of the original Game Boy red and blue versions of Pokémon. So that means if you're a hardcore fan of the series and have been playing it for years now, you'll feel a real sense of déjà vu as you go through the game's quest. As before, the quest here is all about becoming the greatest Pokémon trainer in the world. Basically, in the world of the game, there are these little pocket monsters that run around wild, and they're studied by the scientific community, and they're kind of bred by trainers for battling in sort of a weird dogfighting, cockfighting type of thing. You play the game as just an average boy or girl tasked with finding every last species of Pokémon and becoming the greatest Pokémon trainer in the world. Eventually, though, you'll do win the nefarious Team Rocket and solve a bunch of other types of quests and go through a nice role-playing adventure. It actually lasts quite a long time. This game is about 25 to 30 hours long, and on top of that, once you finish the main quest, there's still a ton of other stuff to do. There are all the multiplayer features and new Pokémon breeds kind of become unleashed on the world for you to try to find, so we're talking dozens and dozens of hours of potential gameplay here, and that's one of the main attractions. Like previous Pokémon games, FireRed and LeafGreen seem like they're two different games, but in fact, they're really pretty much identical. The main difference is a small number of different Pokémon available in one version or the other, so if you want to be a hardcore completist and want to find every single last creature in the game, you'll need to have a friend with the other version, or, God forbid, own both versions yourself. But there's really not much of an incentive to own both games or getting the same experience regardless of which one you get. The gameplay itself is tried and true. Basically, it's part console RPG, where you're running around from a top-down perspective, exploring the countryside, exploring towns, talking to people, and one part battle system. The turn-based battles in Pokémon are definitely the highlight, and they're where most of the action takes place. Usually you're pitting one of your pocket monsters against an opponent, either that of a trainer or a wild Pokémon of some sort. You only have up to 4 different abilities to choose from at any given time, so it seems like a very simple system, but Pokémon fans know that there's some real depth here, especially in how you level up your creatures and eventually decide on different combinations of different creatures to bring to battle. FireRed and LeafGreen really don't change the gameplay much at all. They do carry over a few of the enhancements found in last year's Ruby and Sapphire. For example, you'll experience some of the 2-on-2 battles in the game, both against computer-controlled trainers, and also you can play these battles against friends. So that's pretty cool, but the brunt of the gameplay is really the same as ever, but it's a time-honored tradition, and it's really sort of a classic, so it still holds up very well, and it's able to sustain the hours and hours of gameplay. With that said, if you've gone through all this stuff before, you might be kind of loath to go through it all over again, because you will be in for the same types of experiences. And also, the gameplay does start to get pretty repetitive after a while, especially if you play for hours and hours on end. Nevertheless, it's still a lot of fun, and there's always the multiplayer aspect of the game for you to deal with if you find the questing and sort of the single-player capturing of Pokémon to start to get stale. The inclusion of a wireless adapter in with every copy of FireRed and LeafGreen is definitely the most interesting part of the multiplayer game. It means that you can play multiplayer without a link cable, and actually, it's a pretty novel experience. It's pretty neat. And in fact, if you get a bunch of Pokémon players together in the same room, you can all hang out in like a virtual lobby in-game. However, the brunt of the multiplayer gameplay is still all about trading Pokémon with your friends and battling against them. Trading is definitely worthwhile because any traded Pokémon gain experience faster than normal ones do, so you'll definitely want to find a friend to play this game with. Series fans will also notice about FireRed and LeafGreen that these games offer a lot more information right at your fingertips than previous games in the series did. It's never been easier just to find out what's good, what's not so good about your Pokémon, and really just to manage your gameplay experience well. And as you're racking up more and more of these little guys, as you're catching them out in the wild and trading them with friends and battling them against other trainers, it's really helpful to be able to get a good summary information about them all. The game really does turn out to have a lot of depth to it, because even though you're constantly trying to level up each of your Pokemon and find viable combinations for their different attacks, really what you're also trying to do is balance out their weaknesses, and every single Pokemon does have its own weaknesses, and there are dozens and dozens of different types of these things to be found. The cool thing about the game is that a lot of these old characters are actually redrawn here, and it's great to see them in full color at sharper resolution and basically looking better than ever. The graphics in the game are definitely one of the main attractions, since the Pokemon themselves are very imaginative and have clever names, and they're cute and so forth, and it's cool to see them evolve into kind of scarier, uglier, but much stronger versions of themselves. Meanwhile, though, the audio for the game really hasn't changed much since previous installments, and a lot of the sound effects actually haven't changed at all. Meanwhile, there's sort of a bouncy, uplifting musical score playing harmlessly in the background, so that's all good and doesn't really draw too much attention. The graphics are really at center stage here. Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen are truly great role-playing games, each in their own right. These games really stand on their own merits as really enjoyable, entertaining, portable games. They're great to have on the go, since you could just take a few turns, run a few battles, and then save your progress and carry on some other time. At the same time, though, if you've been playing lots and lots of Pokemon games lately and have been through this type of experience of catching them all and battling your friends and so forth, then these games might not really throw you for much of a spin, so you should definitely know what you're getting in for. However, with that in mind, if you're looking for some great addictive fun for your GBA, then look no further than either one of these games.